Hello, my name is Myrna O'Connell and welcome to Parting Words, a podcast series from RIP.ie and proudly sponsored by Post Insurance, supporting the plans that make life's hardest moments a little easier. You can find out more at onpostinsurance.ie. In this series, our guests will reflect on the messages we leave behind. Through stories, music and conversation, we explore how loss and grief, how they shape us, and how parting words can help us navigate life once our loved ones are gone. In this episode, we meet Sarah Corbett Lynch, an author and public campaigner who came to international attention after the 2015 violent killing of her father, Jason Corbett. It happened in North Carolina when Sarah was just 11 years old. Here she tells us the harrowing story of her father's death and the aftermath, the years of court battles and the anguish as her family sought justice, and the impact all of it had on her incredibly young life. I'd like to welcome today to Parting Words the wonderful Sarah Corbett Lynch. Sarah, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
It's so lovely to see you because I suppose, you know, you are so well known and this is a difficult subject. So we'll get straight into it. Can you tell us about the person that you lost, who they were to you?
Well, I lost my mom when I was 12 weeks old, suddenly to an asthma attack, and then I moved to America with my dad, and he was killed by my stepmom in 2015. So I suppose what my book is about is my dad, and, you know, he was definitely everything to me and my brother, and as I get older, I realise how important he was to so many other people as well, which is really nice.
You mentioned your book there. It's called A Time for Truth, My Father Jason and My Search for Justice and Healing, because many people will know the story of Jason Corbett. And you have been a part of our lives for a really long time. But this was something so personal that happened to you that we've all been looking on at for so long. So Sarah, when you think back to those immediate few weeks after he was gone, you were so young. You were 8 years old.
Yeah.
What was happening? Did you realise your dad was gone?
I mean, I didn't believe it at all, because everybody was so calm. I was with the Martins. I was left in their custody, and we were saying...
This is Molly Martin, who your dad married.
Yes.
Who was originally your au pair.
Yes. And I was living with her mom, her dad, her brothers, her nieces and nephews, and extended family in one house. And, you know, everybody was so calm, and, you know, they were having barbecues, and we went to the beach, and Molly really acted like she had a new lease of life and that everything was okay, that everything was better. You know, she started teaching Bobby, her brother, his daughter, swimming in their pool in the back garden. So it was really hard to believe that my dad was gone. And even bringing it back to the initial night when it happened, when the police officer brought me down to Sharon Martin's, Molly's mom, she was just sitting in her bed reading a book, you know, and when everybody else seems so calm, words don't mean as much as they would if they acted like the words they said, if that makes sense.
A Netflix documentary has been released where pictures of the house that you were in that night, that you were taken downstairs from, a lot of us have seen them now.
Yeah.
They're incredibly graphic.
Yeah.
You've seen them.
Yeah.
Obviously, you were there that night.
Yeah.
There was blood everywhere, and it was your father's blood.
Yeah.
Looking back on it now, because obviously you have looked at these pictures as an older adult.
Yeah.
Can you remember that night? Do you remember seeing things that night?
I remember everything from that night. I didn't see any graphic images that night. I was quite lucky in that sense that the police officer who woke me up, Corporal Clay Dagenhart, was there. And, you know, it's weird to think that like somebody who was just doing their job could have such a big impact in your life. I've since met him, and met his family, and it was, I remember the Martins showing up out of nowhere that day. Molly's parents, and Sharon had only left about 48 hours beforehand. I remember Molly giving me tablets before bed. I remember waking up in the middle of the night and going down the stairs and trying to walk because it seemed like I was on a moving ship, and waking up to seeing spiders and lizards all over my bed, and going downstairs and Molly being in one of my dad's big white t-shirts and taking me out of the room, and my dad being asleep. And then she gave me more medicine and brought me back up to bed, and I woke up again to a police officer who was Corporal Clay Dagenhart.
You remember seeing your dad lying in bed asleep?
Yeah,
that night?
Facing his window, yeah.
Facing his window. And
looking back, I did find it, at the time I didn't think anything of it, but my dad snored pretty loudly, which is something that I get off him. But he was really quiet. He wasn't snoring at all. And it did come back in the toxicology report that he had traces of trazodone in his system, which was a prescription prescribed to Molly about 3 days before.
3 days before. This was a sleeping pill, yes. Essentially.
And I do wish that me and Jack were both tested for any drugs in our system.
So when you say you saw lizards, and this is something that has been reported many a time, especially when we'll get to it, but Jack, he had to recant what he had said in the aftermath of the murder, when you were interviewed by specialist psychologists about what had happened in the house. The lizards thing comes up very quickly with you, that you had seen something.
Yeah.
So do you think you were drugged?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, these were bed sheets that I'd had for years, which I still have at home. I don't use them anymore, but I still have a pillowcase from those bed sheets. They had ballerinas on them, and my dad had got them for me, and they matched a little frame that my dad had got me, a picture of him and my birth mom. And I woke up and there were spiders and lizards all over my bed crawling around me, and I remember when I got out of the bed, I nearly hit the floor because I couldn't carry myself, and I was very paranoid that people were watching me, and there's a lot of things that, looking back, wouldn't be normal for an 8-year-old child to experience, or, which is, I said from the beginning that I saw spiders and lizards on my bed. But because I was a child, it just seemed that people thought that I was, had a big imagination.
You were protected, as you mentioned, by the corporal. Yes. As you were going downstairs, that's something, like, God bless him, for hiding you in his collar as he carried you downstairs, so you didn't have to see what had happened in that house. When you first saw the pictures of what had happened, that so many of us have seen now because of the documentaries and everything that's been going on, what did you think?
It was really hard to see that. I think especially, I saw them with Jack at the same time. So I think it was like everybody in the house's pain. You could feel it in the room. And that was definitely very hard.
What age were you?
I don't know. I was probably 12 or 13.
12 or 13 when you saw those pictures?
Yeah. And I mean, I would have seen them before the documentary came out, because when we were at the sentencing, the defence team were not very careful in making sure that we didn't see those pictures. Because, of course, if they're going to show the judge something, they have to show prosecution as well. And they were very open with their hands on. So me and Jack spent a lot of the sentencing with our heads down, trying not to see them.
It became a transatlantic custody battle. It became a massive news story in Ireland, but it did become a nationwide news story in the US as well. And this was Molly Martins wanting to keep you and Jack.
Yeah.
And your mum, Tracy Corbett Lynch, and David coming over, who were named as guardians in your dad's will.
Yes.
coming over and being like, no,
Yeah.
they're my children.
Yeah.
Your dad has died. So what is being done to protect you? What's happening in that moment about your dad? Because you were brought in. You had to give testimony about what had happened. Were you coached by the Martins?
Absolutely.
To say things.
Molly had been teaching me and Jack to say that my dad was a bad man, that he wasn't a good dad, that he hurt her, that he hit mommy for years. So it wasn't, a lot of people are like, oh, she couldn't have taught them that in a few hours. But she didn't. She taught us that in 4 years.
4 years?
Yes.
When you look back with clarity now, because I know that you've said before that she was trying to pit you and Jack against each other.
Yeah.
What were the little things that she would say to you about your dad?
She told me when I was around 6 that my dad killed my birth mom with a pillow. And my dad bought fish for Father's Day. For Father's Day, he brought us out and bought fish for us, you know. And something happened with the filter. Something mysterious happened with the filter. When me, my dad, and Jack got out in the car to go to the cinema. We came back from the cinema and the fish were dead. And Molly brought us out to bury the fish and she was like, oh, he's killing things again. You know, so it wasn't, she didn't say things directly straight out, which she did as well, but a lot of the time it was just comments. You know, she told me to tell my friends that my dad was not a very good man, which I say in my Dragonfly interview. The justice system definitely failed us as children, because we had no legal guardian at that time. So my dad hadn't signed off for us to be there. Molly didn't have legal guardianship of us, and Tracy and David weren't in the country. So we should have never been interviewed. We should have never been medically examined either, especially because we were medically examined for sexual harassment and abuse, and there was no signs of that. So, you know, it was just a lot of things that weren't necessary and also should not have been allowed unless we had a legal guardian with us.
And Tracy and David got over as quickly as they got to America as quickly as they could, but weren't allowed to see ye.
Yeah.
So again, you'd been living in America.
Yeah.
And these were people that were probably kind of strangers to you at this stage because you'd left when you were so young. You'd left Limerick at such a young age. Yourself and Jackie were American children.
Yeah. I mean, Tracy and David definitely weren't strangers. Like, they'd come over maybe once or twice a year.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it was we didn't want to leave the country that we knew. You know, our friends were there, our swim team, you know, all of that type of stuff. And me and Jack never said that we didn't love Molly. We did. She was a mother figure to us at the time, which is really difficult to come to terms with now, knowing that, you know, a lot of the stuff that I said has helped her get out of prison early. But it's something that is true, but it's not my fault. And I know that, and that took a lot of therapy and a lot of, you know, understanding and time to come to terms with that.
It's really not your fault, the fact that you would sort of think that. You were so young.
Yeah.
Again, a part like the story, it's so hard and we feel like we all know it, but we don't. Again, yourself and Jack recanted a few years later after you'd moved back to Limerick everything you had said in the Dragonfly interview.
Yeah.
Said you'd been coached by the Martins as to what to say.
Yeah.
And when you look at some of the things that Jack says in his interview in relation to physical abuse and verbal abuse, they're kind of words
that a 10-year-old wouldn't know.
Yeah.
You know, those are words that a 10-year-old has heard from somebody else. And that's very evident. And it was, I think, only a few weeks after we moved back to Ireland that we recanted. As soon as we felt safe, we could say what we wanted to say. And, you know, we were extremely lucky that we lived with Tracy and David, because we openly spoke about Molly. I openly said that I missed her when we first got back and talked about memories with the Martins. And Tracy and David never said a bad word about them. They let us say whatever we wanted to say. Let us come to terms with our own trauma and our own ideas of what actually happened. And that has led me to the book, because I was able to make up my own mind. And I was able to look at it back through my own eyes and not through somebody else's.
Your dad died in the August of 2015, the 2nd of August 2015. And you arrived back to Limerick when?
The 17th or 18th of August.
Of August.
Yeah.
It was very quick.
Yeah.
So an awful lot happened.
Yeah.
What does your grief look like over time in relation to your dad in such a public story?
Some days are harder than others. I mean, I find that like a lot of people expect, initially it's really hard, then it gets easier, And it does get easier, but, last year was one of the hardest years for me, because I graduated secondary school. I did all these things that, you want your parents for. Now, I'm lucky I have Tracy and David who were there cheering me on the entire time. But, there's things that, like, I know my dad would have wanted to see. I know that my mom would have wanted to see, So it wasn't even just for me as, like, their kid that would want them to be there. As I get older, I start to notice things that I know they would want to be there for, if you get me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Jack has found it the same way, that, you look at it, especially, like, our family's gotten bigger, there's 2 new babies, and, it's just, there's things that, like, that they would be so excited for, and they don't get to see that. But I definitely think grief is different for everybody. Like, I lived in a house with 6 people when I first moved back to Ireland, and everybody was different. Some people liked to cry about it, some people didn't want to talk about it. I went for walks, I talked to Tracy, I went to therapy. I did a lot because I was younger. I was a lot easier to, like, get into therapy and, like, do things. But everybody has their own way of grieving, and there's no right way of doing it.
You came back from a country you'd known, America, to Limerick. And I remember your dad, Jason's funeral.
Yeah.
And it was huge.
Yeah.
And, you've moved country, everything that's going on. What was that like for you? Because I remember, 2 little kids walking behind a coffin. It's very different from what you would have known.
Yeah.
Do you remember that day?
I remember segments of it.
Yeah.
But not a lot. I remember how loud it was. I remember coming back from the plane, when we got off the plane in Shannon, and I remember there were photographers everywhere. And I remember the amount of people that were there, and I remember there was this one photographer that they'd just leave us alone, and there was a guard trying to tell him to stop, and he wanted just one photo, and I nearly kicked his camera because I wanted to go home. Yeah. But looking back, the amount of people that cared about me and Jack, like, I didn't know about Light Away Home for Jack and Sarah until about 2 or 3 years after I moved back, and the amount of people that cared about us and, like, to get us home is phenomenal. Yeah. So in that sense, again, I was quite lucky that there was, like, Ireland as a whole was just completely there for us, completely supportive of my family. There were so many people that went to out of their way to get us, like, bikes for school and school bags and just things that you wouldn't think to get after everything that's going on. So it was overwhelming, definitely, but there was a lot of love. There was a lot of care.
What was that like when you were just hanging around with making friends, new country, and this maelstrom is happening around you? You'd obviously normalised an awful lot of it.
Yeah.
Did you just get on, or did kids kind of have a clue?
Oh yeah, like I knew parents were, like, telling their kids not to be friends with me because I was the troubled child, and I knew that, like, when you're 8 years of age, there's no such thing as boundaries or a line. So people were like, oh, my mom said this, or I heard that this, and I just got on with it. I also took it, I also went the wrong way, especially with my close friends, about it. I just wouldn't tell them anything. Like, if we went to America, I would just disappear from school. Or if, I had to go and do something, I would just disappear. I wouldn't tell my friends. And that definitely wasn't the right way to go about it. But I just didn't know how to explain that, especially, like, when I got to age, maybe, I think I was the worst when I was, like, 13 to 16. Because everyone has social media.
Yeah.
At that age, And I had written Noodle Loses Dad. So everyone kind of knew that
It was a book that you'd written when you were quite young.
Yes.
Yeah.
So everyone was like, I had some friends that came to that book launch, and that was lovely. But I still had the big mask of what that book actually was about. And I think I've only just realised now, going into college and just being completely honest and open about who I am and my background and stuff like that people don't really care that much, especially my age, because everyone has their own stuff going on. And people are so nice. And I think maybe it's because so much time has gone by that people aren't as obsessive about it. But I've made so many new friends, and they were like, oh my God, no way. Well done.
That's it.
Yeah. And then we go and talk about what project we have to do. And that's so nice.
Isn't that interesting that we are inherently kind of self-involved?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, right, that's who you are. And then they just move on.
I had one or two friends that were like, oh, like they just didn't realise it. And they were like, the Netflix. And I was like, yeah. And they were like, that's so cool. Fair play to you.
Right.
And then they started talking about, like, something else. And that's when I just realised that I really feel sorry for the friends that I had when I was in secondary school and primary school, because maybe not primary school, I probably went about it the best way I could, but secondary school, I remember we were going over for hearings, and I'd come back and I'd have people saying, how was your holidays? Because I couldn't tell them, and very few people watched the news my age at the time, so they wouldn't know. And like my school knew, and I had the best school, secondary school. I really did, hands down. I will always say that. And I know your niece and nephew went to the same school as me, so they might not agree, but
they do.
Yeah, the teachers were amazing. Yeah. They all knew, never mentioned anything. My principal was the nicest person about it. I remember when I was going over for the final sentencing hearing, he was like, when you get back here, we'll do whatever. And just so, like, we can send you anything you want. Don't worry about doing classwork. We'll catch you up. I'll have, like, after school study, a few of my teachers like, we'll stay back if you want to do extra stuff, because we didn't know how long I was going to be there for.
Yeah.
So I do wish that I was more open with friends about what I was doing, because then they'd see it online and be like, why didn't she tell me?
That's a lot to navigate for someone who's 13 years old. And you said 13 to 16 were the years that were probably the hardest for you. And I know that you're also dealing with the grief of your brother at home, that you're all in this, there's a lot going on. But for you, what happened in those years?
Well, I started secondary school, I was making new friends, and everyone got social media. So everyone kind of Google it now. And then I think it was the hardest when it came to, like, being able to tell people what was going on, because I did it to myself, really. I kind of split my two lives in half. Like, there was Sarah that was in school, in the choir, not really good at maths, there was that. And then there was also Sarah, who was doing interviews, who was on the Late Late, who was going over to hearings, and and it was all one person, but I just split them so much that I couldn't talk about, like, I didn't talk about my friends when I was in interviews, and I didn't talk to my friends about interviews. I would just say, oh, I have a thing. Yeah. Or I would just say, oh, I have an interview, and they would assume it's for a job. Do you know?
Right.
And even when we were filming for the Netflix documentary, which I couldn't tell them about that.
Yeah.
But my friends got so used to me just disappearing, they just didn't ask, which was good for that circumstance.
Yeah.
But I just said, oh, I have an interview, and they were like, okay.
They get like an interview for Duns, they're thinking.
Do you know?
And
Yeah.
you're going off and doing something else.
Yeah.
About your dad's murder.
Yeah.
Compartmentalising like that.
Yeah.
Learning to do that at such a young age, first of all, like it must have been self-preservation.
Yeah.
At Unpost Insurance, we know how important it is to take care of your family. So even when you're not around, your family will know what to expect. With our funeral insurance, you can cover your own funeral costs from as little as €20 per month. With no medicals required if you're aged between 50 and 75 and resident in the Republic of Ireland. Taking care of not being there. Call us now on 0818 22 22 22.
When they were initially convicted of the second degree manslaughter of your father, Jason, in 2017, what was that? Because you were so young.
It was a new beginning for all of us.
Okay.
We all felt that, and it felt like finally we could start living our own lives and, you know, starting our own new family. So it was nice. We were all really excited just to not have to go to America and wait for the next email to come crushing down, you know. So initially we thought that it would be over, but Tracy she knew. She was like that they're going to appeal.
When the appeal started in 2020 and it's plea agreements and all this is happening, and then a new attorney gets involved and they bring your mother Mags into it.
Yeah.
And her death.
Yeah.
And they started questioning that.
Yeah.
And Tom Martin said he was told by your grandfather, Mags's dad,
Yeah.
that he had said that Jason, that your dad had done something to Mags.
Yeah.
Which never happened.
They didn't meet each other.
He said that they never had this conversation. It never happened,
Yeah.
right? So you're in court, you're older now.
Yeah.
And you're hearing your mother being dragged into this.
Yeah.
By a woman who claims to be your mother, to love you.
Yeah. I was so angry.
Yeah.
I was like, it was the first time I think that genuinely there was no, how could someone let that happen? Do you know, how could someone who said that they loved you do that? You know, she says it in the Netflix documentary that, you know, how she will always care or something like that. Well, that's not very true, because you couldn't do that to someone that you cared about. And it made me so angry that her attorneys could, like, how can you just go home to your kids and your wife after saying those things, knowing that me and Jack are sitting there listening to you saying that, knowing it's not true as well.
Because your Aunt Catherine was in the house
she was in the house that night, and my grandfather signed an affidavit as well.
Yeah, to say this never happened.
Yeah.
But your aunt was there.
Yeah.
When this horrible thing happened to your mother, Mags.
She was in the house. My dad woke her up. You know, he drove halfway to the ambulance because they weren't getting there fast enough. Yeah. You know, so there's so many reasons as to why it was not true, that it just made me so angry.
Like bringing up your mother in such a way like that. Were you shocked? Did you expect anything like that? You weren't shocked?
No.
You thought that they'd do that?
Yes.
Wow.
I knew Molly would. And Tom would do anything to keep his status. So I wasn't surprised at all. I wasn't even hurt. I was just angry. It bothered me how much, I think it was 2 days they went over stuff about my mom. And then nobody mentioned my aunt until the last day, and there was like 10 minutes. And I remember during my victim impact statement and Jack's victim impact statement, we both brought that up. And I remember the judge looking at me and then looking at the Martins. You know, like, they wasted everybody's time. And not only that, to bring an innocent woman who died now almost 20 years ago, you know, while her 2 kids are sitting there for a court hearing about the death of their dad. Nobody, you couldn't do that to someone you even liked. Do you know, it was completely awful, and I found it very difficult, and I think we all did in the house, especially because my mom can't stand up for herself, my dad can't stand up for themselves. So, you know, doing that is just, it's just completely awful. And I think that's something about the American judicial system that just really lets people down.
When they took their plea agreement of it was no contents, it was guilty pleas to voluntary manslaughter. And then time served was brought into this.
Yeah.
And they end up getting out in 2024. I think an awful lot of people will remember her coming out of those gates.
And waving.
And waving.
We knew it was coming. What I didn't know is that I would be in the hospital sitting my English paper 1 for my leaving cert that day. So the doctor, I remember when I first went to A&E, and he said his tonsillitis, it wasn't anything too serious, but I had really bad tonsillitis. And I remember he said to my mom, like, you know, is there anything that could be really stressing her out? And my mom just looked at me and was like, oh, God. Yeah. Like, so it was, I think for me, having so much to be thinking about that day did kind of help, that I had the leaving cert and that I was, you know, I was quite sick, so I was sleeping a lot. But it was hard that I couldn't be there with the rest of my family. You know, Tracy was with me. But we were in Galway, so it was a lot more difficult because I would have liked to be with Jack and with Adam, and you know, I didn't see the video, I think, until the next day. And you can hear someone saying smile at her, and then she starts waving and smiling. And in my head, and I might be wrong, but it was like she was trying to taunt, I want to say Tracy, not me, because she always had a hatred for Tracy. Always. She never, I remember I used to I loved hanging out whenever they came to America. I get so excited. And I was in awe of Adam as well. My now brother.
Your brother.
Yeah, don't tell him. But I was. And they'd come, and even if I was just sitting in Tracy's lap, Molly would be like, you need to go to the bathroom. Or, you know, I remember there's this triangular game in this restaurant that we always go to, Cracker Barrel. And it's like a smartness test. Not really, but you have to skip things to get the least amount of little coins. And Molly's mom tried it and she left 3. I tried it and left 7. Molly tried it and she left 5. And she was saying that it was impossible that to do it. And Tracy knocked everything out of it. I was able to do it. And she just got so mad about it because Tracy could. It was a little game on the table that you play before you get some food. But there was just so many things that she just openly didn't like Tracy. So when I saw that, it was the first thing that came to my mind. And I just thought, God, have you not done enough? Do you know? Because I've spent, maybe all the life that I can remember, so, you know, 7 years under Molly's influence, and then another 8 under the judicial system. So it wasn't really until last year, most of last year and this year, I've actually just been able to be a teenager and, you know, now I'm an adult. But
calm down. You're
Yeah,
all right. You're
yeah.
not right. But that is the thing.
Yeah.
You have lived a different life to most other people.
Yeah.
Jack gets it. Probably in a different way. You've
Even,
probably
yeah.
done, you know, you've probably, like, do you feel like you've dealt with it in different ways?
Definitely. I think
Yeah.
everybody does. As well as I put myself out there. Like, I flung myself into, like, with Noodle Loses Dad and with The Time for Truth. Because it's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Whereas me and Jack have a lot of the same views. Most of the same views, if not all. But he doesn't like cameras. He doesn't like talking about it to people that he doesn't know. Whereas I will talk to anyone that listens. Do you know?
And doing the book, I remember when I read it, and it's just so searingly honest for someone who's so young, to kind of the insight. You've lived 5 different lifetimes in you know, less than 2 decades. Did the memoir help? Did it, because it is about your grief.
Yeah. I decided to write the book in the courtroom bathrooms during the sentencing hearing. It'd been something that'd been playing on my mind anyways, because Tracy had written a book, and, you know, if you know me well, if my mom's going to do it, I'm going to do it too. No, but it'd been playing on my mind anyways to do something. But I remember there was a siren started going off because something happened in the jailhouse, and I get panic attacks when I hear sirens or have flashing lights because of that night. That's all I could see out the downstairs window.
Yeah.
And I went into the bathroom, and I remember I was like up against the cold frame of the stall, like holding my ears in a corner where I couldn't see flashing. Tracy came into me and she was like, "You okay?" And I was trying to calm me down. And I remember just being like, "I'm so sick of this. I'm so sick of it." And when I got home, I put together a pitch and I emailed it to Hachette. And then by April, we started writing it. So I had an extremely amazing team as well. They knew the sensitivity of the subject. But they knew how important it was to me and how much it was. The book is sad. There's sad moments and it's about grief and stuff, but a lot of it is about determination. And it might be a sad story or an upsetting story that I'm telling in it, but the reason I'm telling it is because I want you guys to understand that all of the decisions my dad made was out of love to protect me and Jack. Do you know? And it's the same with Tracy and David. All the decisions they're made by not saying a bad word about the Martins for about 5 years. Like, I don't know how they did that. The first thing Tracy said to me was, "I don't like her." And that was when I was basically screaming at her in the car on the motorway, like having an absolute meltdown about how much they've hurt me and all the things they've done to me. And I was like, "Please just say something bad about them." And she said, "I don't like her. She killed my brother." And that was it. Wow. And I don't know how she did that, because I couldn't even do that now.
Wow. And it's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
To want to protect your children.
Yeah.
And not influence them in any way.
Yeah.
Right? When you decided to do, because as you've mentioned, Jack doesn't really get involved in an awful lot of things. And when you decided to do the Netflix documentary.
Yeah.
Have you watched it?
Yeah. Yeah, I have. We watched it together as a family.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get to see the final edit before it came out. So we saw it with everyone else.
Okay.
And me and Tracy made the mistake of booking ourselves into work that day. So we didn't it came out at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't get to see it till like 3. So we all went home, sat down, watched it together, had a little cry, and then got up and went back about our day, because it was really difficult to watch. But I definitely think that my family portrayed themselves as they are.
Yeah.
And I think that the Martins portrayed themselves as they are in it as well. So I was happy with, you know, everything that I said. Anybody in my family, what they said. A lot of what the Martins said isn't true. But I think that's very obvious.
And that's what a documentary is for.
Yeah.
For people to make up.
Yeah, because it was difficult hearing that there was going to be some of the Martins in it. But at the same time, I watch true crime. I'm also studying, like, film.
Yeah.
So you kind of understand the fact that I always find anyways, whenever I'm watching like documentaries, if it's just one side of the story, you're always like, but they didn't get their say. So as difficult as it was to have to listen to them lie about my family, I understood the purpose for them being in it.
Okay. There's a bit that when I watch it, I can't stop thinking about it. And I watched it when it came out, like.
Yeah.
And it's a bit where in the courtroom they're drawing a correlation between your mum dying, Mags, and what happened to your dad, and that you were involved in both of them because you were in your mum's arms. And, and you were the one who came downstairs when you were 8 years old because you were seeing something on the beds.
Yeah. Doug Kingsbury, he was doing some,
he was a solicitor.
He was Molly's, yeah. He was trying to do like a closing argument for the fact that that he was trying to make up the fact that my dad killed my birth mom. And I remember like he put his hand back like towards me and was like, there's one common denominator. And like I remember everyone in my family was like, how could you even say that? Because my mom fed me the night that she passed away, and I went downstairs the night that my dad passed away. To think, that's where I kind of thought that, like, this is not a person to you. This is a court case, this is a number. You do not care about me, my family, you do not care about anybody but yourself and winning, and probably money. And that's when I was like, there is nothing that this courtroom is going to do to get justice for my dad.
Wow.
So that's why the book happened, and that's why the documentary happened, and that's why I'm doing these interviews. And that's why me and Jack, at the last minute, decided to give the judge a picture of my dad, which we weren't necessarily allowed to do, but the prosecution said that most likely the defence wouldn't stop us from doing it because that would look really bad. Because I realised that the judge hadn't seen my dad only for crime scene photos. And whatever he saw in those photos is not my dad as a person. You know, he never saw my dad living. So we picked pictures of, like, us going for a walk and him cheering us on at, like, baseball games. And we gave them to him. And I think I said it in my victim impact statement that I want you to look at it and see that he was a dad, a brother, a son, a husband, you know. And I made it very clear in my victim impact statement that he was a good husband too. Like I remember him bringing Molly flowers home, telling her how beautiful she was, and just little things, breakfast in bed, and drawing her a bath if she had a bad day. Like, he did those things. And he was a really good dad. I got really upset when I accepted the award the other night. Firstly, because I was nervous.
And this is for you won Biography of the Year at the An Post Irish Book Awards. Yes.
I got quite upset, not only because obviously I was very nervous. I was in a room with some of the most influential people in Ireland, and they thought that my book was worthy of that, which is a complete honour. But somebody in the background, when I first got my award, some man shouted fair play above everybody. And it just reminded me of, like, my dad shouting over crowds when he just absolutely was not meant to. Do you know, like, I remember it, gymnastics, You're not meant to shout. Go, like, throughout the entire thing, my dad would do it. And I remember at the time, I wasn't embarrassed about it. Like, most kids would have been embarrassed about it, but my dad was, like, already standing out because he was, like, 6 foot something, a big Irish man with a loud voice. So I was like, look, at least he's cheering me on, do you know? So, like, it kind of reminded me of that, and it triggered something where I got quite upset on stage because, you know, the book is for my dad and about my dad, you know? So, I don't know, I find, like, some things are, like, little signs, and I think that definitely was a little sign for my dad. You know, so whoever did shout out fair play, thanks for that.
That's beautiful. Yeah. As I've said before, your experience of death is something that most people will never think about. What have your experiences taught you? What do you think about death now?
I think it's really important to talk about it. It's going to happen to everybody. Everybody's going to lose somebody that they love. But you can see it if you spend like a day or two in my house, that like no one leaves the house without saying like, bye, I love you. Do you know, or every night, everyone, like my brothers are 24, 21. Do you know, I'm 19 and we still go in and hug mom and dad, say goodnight, I love you. On the phone, good night, or bye mom, love you. It's just, you never know when you're going to lose someone that you love. And I'm glad to have remembered my last moments with my dad. I was walking up the stairs and I said, good night dad, love you. And he said, good night princess, love you. Don't, that's really nice that I have that. Do you know what I mean? My last memory is of my dad is him telling me that he loves me. And I would hope that that would be my last memory of everybody that I love. So, not that I think anything bad's going to happen to anyone in my family, but, you know, it's just, we're all very aware that life is short. You only have one. And it's important that if you love and you care about somebody, that you tell them that.
Is there something that you hear or see that brings your dad back to you instantly? A song or anything?
White butterflies, definitely. Because there was white butterflies at my grandfather's funeral and my dad's funeral and my nana's funeral. And every time I go away or abroad, I always see 2 white butterflies. And Chicken Fried by Zach Brown Band. I love that song. It's so good.
And you always sang that together,
We
wasn't
did.
it? Yeah.
And we always sang Someone Like You by Adele. That was the first song I ever learned. And I remember me and my dad scream singing that song in the car. But there's a lot of things like that remind me of my dad. Things that remind me of my mom as well. I'm lucky to be living with both my mom and my dad's best friends. You know, they moved in with Tracy and David. And they lived next to each other and they were best friends. So I actually kind of get to know them as like, not like, oh, parents that would give out to me, but as in like cool people that like, you know, went to parties and did cool stuff, you know, because I'm just hearing it from their friends, that kind of stuff. So it is nice to be able to learn about them and get to know them in that way as well.
It's amazing to get to see them as young people in love and to hear that about
Oh my
them.
God, yeah. Apparently my dad was a big romantic. And that he used to write mom love letters and he actually kept them all in a suitcase, so I have them. And he kept my mom's clothes. So I have her jeans, like I can wear my mom's jeans and her tops, and he kept some nice dressy stuff as well, which is handy. So I have that, and I have loads of stuff belonging to them, which is really nice.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and he kept his... I don't have a lot of stuff belonging to my dad because the Martins cleared out the house. But my dad kept an aftershave called, I think it's Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
In the suitcase dedicated to my mom because it was the first gift she ever bought him. But he wore that up until the day he died. So I remember we were looking through the suitcase, which you do once or twice a year, and we only just found, we always find something new in it. Tracy sprayed it, and I remember I just went, because it was like my dad had just walked into the room, because I hadn't smelt it anywhere else since, because I think it's discontinued now, that specific one. So it was just lovely, and I sprayed it on my wrist, and Jack came home from school, and I was like, smell my wrist. Jack was like, okay. And he looked at me, and he was like, where did you get that? So that was really nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fab.
Yeah.
This is a tough one, because, you know, things change.
Yeah.
And you've, a lot going on. Where do you think your mum and dad are?
I definitely think they're together.
Do you?
Yeah. And I definitely think they're with my nana as well. But I just feel like they would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, my nana and my mum got on really well. Okay. So they're definitely up there bossing my dad around.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that something, do you think about that?
Yeah.
You do?
I do, yeah. Like I don't know where they are, spiritually or religiously, I don't know. But I definitely think that they're together. And I definitely think that they do send signs.
And is that in the butterflies, or is it in like the fair play? Like
yeah,
that you feel
things.
like?
Yeah, like little things. Even on the way to the book awards, we were in the taxi for an hour. We were stuck in traffic, and it was only like 2-kilometer drive. And I remember I openly was like, lads, I know this is kind of not that important to ask you to help me with the lights to get me there, but is there any chance that you could do that? And like 2 minutes later, the lights all went green. And I feel bad for the taxi driver because he had no context of what I was doing. And I literally just looked up and I was like, thank you. My mom was just like looking at me as if to be like,
Are you talking? Are you up to? And do you talk to them?
yeah. Like I go to the graveyard and I openly like talk to them. I once had a competition in LA for dancing. And I performed my dance for them in the graveyard. And I definitely scared a few people. But I'd do it again. So I am that person that goes to the graveyard. I'm like, hi guys, how you doing? Those flowers are dead. Like, and I'd be telling them, tell my mom the gossip as well, to know what's going on. So they probably know about way more people than anybody thinks, but they do. They know all the gossip.
So they're very present in your life.
Yeah. I think the only way to keep people present is to say their name. You know, I was like, I lost my mom years ago, but I feel way closer to her than I ever have. Like, I never met her. I never got to talk to her. I couldn't even talk when she passed away. But, like, I feel very close to her. And Tracy always says it that she was like, she said it to me the other night, which is actually so lovely. She was like, Mags is never gone when you're around. Because apparently I'm very like her. Apparently, like I say very witty things and sometimes a little bit stupid things that, you know, she would have said. And we have the same, like, cackle laugh. So there's certain things that I know that I got from my mom. And there's certain things that, like, I know I got my determination from my dad. And my people skills from probably both of them. But I definitely had such good role models with Tracy and David because they, from what I know of my mom and what I know of my dad, Tracy and David are very similar to them. Do you know, especially when it comes to like the drive, the dedication, the, you know, the fun as well. They're so much fun.
Yeah.
Ask any of my friends. I love a good night out with my parents.
Yeah.
They are great crack. Do you know? They definitely are like cool parents. And I'm very lucky for that. You can ask my brothers as well. Like a good family night out is the best.
Yeah. They really are. Tracy's great crack.
Isn't she? She's so like, and she's now having to come to terms with the fact that we're the same size in clothes. So I just take everything in a wardrobe. Yeah. Yeah. And all my friends, like my close friends, all the girls, like, oh, did you get that? If I look nice, like they'll be, oh, you look so nice. Did you get that from your mom's wardrobe? And I can't even say no because it's normally true. So.
To be surrounded by this love.
Yeah.
And I'm sure now, because I know, you know, a picture of your mom was taken away in America from your bedroom. And I'm sure there's pictures. Are there pictures of your parents? Do you have them?
Yeah. I'm in my, on my dresser, as you walk into my room, I have a picture of my mom, Tracy, my aunt at my christening, a picture of my dad. I have a picture of my mom and my dad, a picture of my grandma. Like, I have a picture of, do you know, and there's pictures of them all over the house. So, like, there's never... Tracy and David love talking about them, you know, and I think for a long time they couldn't because it made us upset. But they are so... They just randomly bring stuff up, or like, I'll say something and David would be like, oh, that's something Jay would say. Do you know? So it's nice to have people that love your parents as much as you do.
And as you move forward in life, because you're so young and you've gone through so much, what's in your heart about everything that's happened, about people who are, you know, in this world walking around who have done irrevocable harm to you and your family? How are you? I'm good. I mean, I don't have any anger anymore. I mean, as long as, like, they're not trying to talk about my mom, or my dad. But, like, I got asked, actually, in an interview I did a few weeks ago, was I worried if the mountains would try and sue me or something about my book? And I'm not, because not only is everything in my book absolutely true and concrete, I had to go through legals in Ireland. It's also in paperback in North Carolina, so I had to go through American legals, and not a word was changed. So there is nothing that I've said in that book that's not true. There's nothing that I've said in the documentary that's not true. Because I don't need to lie. Do you know,
That's why the book is called The Time for Truth, because everything in that book is the truth. So I definitely think that there's a lot to say for it, that the truth will prevail. It might not get the justice in a courtroom that you want, but the truth definitely will prevail.
And Sarah Corbett Lynch, before you leave us today, as someone who's so wise, beyond wise, get her on Dancing with the Stars, lads.
Yes.
This is the next thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, you've gone through a lot, and, you know, you've got that wisdom in you, and you also still have such a sense of fun, and you've got, you know, you care about the world, and you care about your friends, you care about your family, and you want to learn more. Like, you're such an active person. For anyone who's listening now who might be going through a hard time or going through some grief, that might be very different for you, but grief is grief.
Yeah.
Do you have any parting words for them today?
I would definitely say that no matter how small you feel or how small people have made you feel, you always have a voice. And I'm not saying come on to podcasts or go onto TV or do what I'm doing, but nobody has the right to write your own story. Only you have that right. So please use your own voice and know that everyone has power in their own voices.
Sarah Corbett Lynch, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Coming up, we hear from Dr. Emer Rosato, whose research is centred on intergenerational memory and trauma and the long-term effects of violence at the community and individual level. Here, Emer offers advice on how to approach the symptoms of trauma.
What is trauma? Trauma results from an exposure to an incident or a series of events which are out of your control. They are emotionally disturbing, frightening or distressing or life-threatening. And they have lasting adverse effects on the individual's functioning and mental, physical, social and emotional well-being. I think of trauma like a shadow cast over your life. Everything that falls within that shadow, all of your interactions, your relationships, all exist, and not a single part of your life is untouched by it. There is no list of what experiences are deemed traumatic, and it's more about how you react to them. It's about the emotional scaffolding that you have in place to support you. But there are some traumatic experiences which are more heavy than others, such as physical, sexual or emotional abuse, childhood neglect, living with a family member with a mental health or a substance use disorder, a sudden unexplained separation from a loved one, poverty, which is massive, especially in the cost of living crisis. There's racism, discrimination and oppression, and violence within your community. Trauma can happen at any age. Most of us will experience an event in our lives that can be considered traumatic, but we won't all be affected by it in the same way. And our experiences are not linear, right? We can have space in between the event and then how the trauma affects us later. And it may take people a longer time to come to terms with and acknowledge their trauma. To be able to identify and understand and support people, we need to understand the effects of trauma physically, psychologically, and emotionally. When we feel stressed or threatened, our bodies release hormones called cortisol or adrenaline, and this is our body's way of preparing for danger, and it's completely uncontrollable. And this can have a range of effects, like we know the kind of fight or flight or freeze. And if we experience trauma, our body's reactions can continue long after the trauma is over. For example, when we're in a situation that reminds us of that trauma, this might affect how we think and feel and behave in that moment, and especially if the recovery has been difficult. Physical and emotional effects can lead to experiences of like flashbacks, disassociation, sleep deprivation, substance or alcohol misuse, panic attacks. There are a range of impacts that have on the body. And even two people who experience the exact same traumatic event, such as an accident, they will have different reactions. One person might freeze, go numb. Another person may kick into fight or flight. And we cannot determine what our responses are going to be because they are uncontrollable. Therefore, it's important when we're trying to understand people's trauma that we don't say, well, if it was me, I wouldn't have frozen or I wouldn't have fought. This is unhelpful. Not everyone feels the same during or after trauma, and how we can feel changes over time, even months or years after the event. the recovery from trauma is not linear. If you have experienced trauma, you might have difficulty with the day-to-day aspects of your life, such as looking after yourself, holding down a job, trusting others, maintaining friendships or relationships, remembering things. Making decisions can be difficult. Your coping mechanisms for change may be different. And how you understand your traumatic experience that exists within your new life now can also be incredibly challenging. Trauma manifests in various ways and changes how people engage with the world around them and how they engage with the people they love in their lives. And this is so important to consider how people can look after each other. If someone you know, you interact with, you work with, you go to school with, you play sports with, if they start to change and their habits start to look like what I just mentioned, then we have to navigate differently how we engage with them on a daily basis. Because they may have experienced a traumatic event or are currently processing a traumatic event. And we need to centre empathy in how we engage with them. To be able to support people who have experienced traumatic events, or even how we engage and understand with trauma-informed processes, we do need to know what it looks like or how it can potentially manifest in people. And that we can identify behaviours in order to provide supports. Trauma-informed care or practice recognises and understands the impact of trauma on a person's life and their development, on their families and on their society as a whole. And we don't know what happens in people's lives, but if you start to lead with empathy and if you start to centre care in all of your interactions, then it means no matter who you engage with on a daily basis, no matter what they're going through, they leave that interaction with you unharmed. The principles of trauma-informed care and practice centre on safety, physical and emotional safety. Trust is a massive. Choice, collaboration, empowerment. These are all central to how we engage with a trauma-informed process. A trauma-informed practice, it's to provide a safe place for people to enable them to thrive. And by safe, I don't mean just spatially, but that you are a person who is empathetic, who listens, who understands that their difficulty in being on time, in making decisions, in remembering things, in how they cope with their life and the changes that are existing around them, that this is all determined by their trauma. And to make sure that you are not reacting negatively to them or reinforcing negative feelings about themselves. It's a reframing of the question, what's wrong with you, to what happened to you. Take that accusatory nature out of the question and to reframe it. Because as a society, we need to reframe how we engage with people. We should act with empathy, minimise re-traumatisation and prioritise emotional safety for everyone we have in our lives and everyone we engage with on a daily basis. To learn more about a trauma-informed practice, please check out traumainformed.ie, Quality Matters, Anxiety Ireland, and the HSE have some trauma-informed initiatives.
You have been listening to Parting Words, a podcast from RIP.ie and proudly sponsored by Unpost Insurance, supporting the plans that makes life's hardest moment a little easier. You can find out more at unpostinsurance.ie and subscribe now for more episodes in this series.